Philadelphia Eagles, you are welcome. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. So we had the annual spring league meeting yesterday where teams vote on rule change proposals submitted by other teams. So just wanted to hop on here, give my thoughts on the approved ones and the ones that got voted on, and obviously just the storylines, etc. The Browns did not submit a proposal this year. They obviously did last year, trying to get the trade deadline pushed back to week 10, which I completely agreed with. That did not get approved. They clearly didn't feel like they had the momentum and the support to try again this year. So as I said, they did not submit a rule change proposal, but they did play a big part in what was the biggest storyline of these rule change proposals. Arguably the only one that was actually getting spoken about, which of course is the Tush push, and whether or not it should be banned. Such a controversial play. You either love it or you hate it. It was the Green Bay Packers that wanted to ban it, and of course, the Philadelphia Eagles, as you would expect, tried to everything they could to save it. They managed to save it, and as I said, the Browns played a pivotal role in that, being one of the 10 teams to vote to save the Tush push. You need 24 votes, obviously, out of 32 to get a rule change approved, and 22 teams voted to ban it. And as I said, the Browns were one of the 10 teams to vote to save it. The Eagles, obviously, as well, were one of those teams. The Ravens, the Lions, the Jaguars, the Dolphins, the Patriots, the Saints, the Jets, and the Titans were the other teams to vote to save the Tush push, and were successful in doing so. So the Tush push survives for at least another year. It is notable that only 2 NFC teams on that list of teams that voted to not ban it. Of course, NFC teams having to play the Eagles more often than the AFC teams. You can understand why they're going to have more of a reason to hate this play. And, I get it. I understand why everyone hates it. I hate it, if we're being honest, in terms of I don't like watching it. It's boring, of course. If you saw the Ben Johnson comments today or yesterday, saying about how he doesn't like it because it's not even possible to get more than 1 yard on it. Which, don't get me wrong, I don't have his view of just because you can't get more than 1 yard doesn't mean you shouldn't run it. But from a fan perspective, watching it on the screen, I mean, everyone remembers the Commanders playoff game and the mess that led to in them trying to stop it. It can just get a bit. It is a boring play. But with that being said, I agree with the Cleveland Browns in voting to save the Tush push. I don't think it should be banned, and it comes into 2 things really. First and foremost, as I said, I don't think the play should be banned as a whole. Yes, it's boring. I don't like watching it, but in the end of the day, if you don't like something and don't want them to do it, then stop them. And yes, it's very tricky to do so, and I can understand the biggest argument. If I was to make the argument against the Tush push, and if I was to sit here and say I wanted it to get banned, the biggest reason I would use is that you could say it's unfair because the offense can start pushing as the ball is being snapped, whilst the defense cannot start pushing back until after the ball has been snapped. Otherwise, it's an offside penalty. So technically, that is an actual advantage. So that's what I would use for that argument. But in the end of the day, it's no different to a quarterback sneak, and it's no different to most NFL players. The offense is always going to have the upper hand because they know what they're about to do, whereas the defense, they can have their best judgment, but they don't know for sure. So that argument can just be applied to every NFL play. As much as in that argument, in that situation, it does seem like a massive advantage for the team doing it. But as I said, if you've got a problem with it, stop it. No one has been able to do it. I say no one. Some teams have managed to stop. I mean, it's funny. The Green Bay Packers, I'm pretty sure, actually stopped it in quite a big play this past year. Yet they were still the team that pushed forward, and actually submitted the proposal. We obviously are going to have jokes all season now. Anytime the Eagles run the tush push against one of the teams that voted to ban it, there's obviously going to be memes and all of that stuff, which is going to be funny to see. And I'm happy that the Cleveland Browns were on the right side of doing that. But went on a bit of a tangent there and completely forgot the second point of what I was of why I didn't want it to be banned, which is, in a vacuum, if it was to just be the tush push, that play, just, you cannot run the tush push to be banned. I still wouldn't want it to be banned, but I wouldn't be as mad about it. But it wasn't just the tush push play that was to be banned. It was the whole motions of, supporting a player in a play, pushing a player forward. It used to be illegal to do so in the NFL. That was something that used to be illegal. You couldn't, just say the running back, then you're the offensive lineman. You couldn't just grab him and push him forward and use him to bulldoze through players, as you can see. And so, we're all Browns fans. We all remember the 2023 Ravens game where Jerome Ford, got pushed 12 yards by pretty much the whole Browns team, other than the quarterback. And that's the reason, because that would have been illegal if this rule went through, because, as I said, it wasn't just the tush push play that is to be banned, and in a vacuum it was just you can't run that play. It was all of the motions and actual physical things that go into pushing the players that would have been banned, that in the language that initially when I first saw the thing, I didn't think this would be the case, but then someone sent me the actual submitted proposal with the language in it, and that play would have been illegal. That the 12-yard push from the Browns against the Ravens, those kind of plays would have been illegal. You wouldn't have get to seen those rucks. That I know the Americans love calling it a scrum, but technical rugby terms, it is not a scrum, it's a ruck. But it's fine. At least they're giving rugby some praise by calling it a scrum. But those plays would be outlawed if this rule was passed. It wasn't just the tush push. It was all of those plays, rolled into one. So they were the two reasons why I didn't want this to be banned, and was, very happy that the Browns voted against it, and, thankfully got it pushed through and managed to save it with the 10 votes. As I said, there were other rule changes. This was obviously talked about the most, but some other things were obviously changed as well and discussed. The NFL approved the onside kicks thing. Last year when they changed obviously the kickoff, and by doing so you kind of had to change the onside kick rules with it as well. But they made it so you can only do it if you're trailing and it's in the fourth quarter, which was just ridiculous, putting that amount of restrictions on an onside kick, and was something that I was completely against and didn't think they should do. But they did. But they've amended that, and now you can try and attempt an onside kick at any period in a game. Doesn't just have to be the fourth quarter. But, pardon me, you do still have to be trailing. You cannot run an onside kick if you are leading for some reason, which, I get it, but do you need to put that even in language? Yes, maybe, there are obviously the examples of teams that, but, I feel like that's just a bit extra and don't even feel like needed to be in it. But hey, it is, and but at least now that you can attempt an onside kick at any period in the game, because I just felt it was yes, more often than not, and you can, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's probably quite high that most onside kicks are attempted in the fourth quarter. But in the end of the day, just putting a restriction on that, I just felt was stupid. And I'm happy that they changed that. And also now it will be kicked from the 34 instead of the 35, which again is just, I don't understand that, but it is what it is. If that's the give and take to get it back where you can attempt it in any period of the game, then so be it. The other, I suppose, second biggest one, biggest news of it was that the NFL owners approved NFL players being able to compete in the Olympics for the flag football. This is obviously great news for NFL fans and terrible news for every flag football team not named the United States, because this is going to be an absolute slaughter in Los Angeles in the, is it 2028 Olympics. If the USA even lose a game, let alone if like a pool game or whatever, a group stage game, if they even lose a game, then that is just an embarrassment, because if they actually get the support of the NFL players and the best guys go out and want to compete, then that's going to just be a ridiculous team that should beat any other. I saw a tweet. That it's going to be, you're going to see Justin Jefferson going up against a civil engineer from Luxembourg. It's just going to be it's going to be hilarious. We see what some of these players do to other NFL players, let alone to people like me representing us. If I was representing the UK or something like that. But it would be quite funny to see, and it is going to be. I'm interested to see what NFL players look like in a flag football setting against non-NFL players. It will be cool as well, because of course there's a lot of NFL players with heritage around the world. So it would be awesome if those guys didn't all just want to play for Team USA. Of course, they won't all be able to play for Team USA. So, they went and represented, the country, whether it was of their birth or, their parents' birth and so on, and just get as much NFL talent as we can, representing as many different countries as we can. That would be the best case, outcome for NFL fans and for the product and watching it. I think I saw Kyle Hamilton tweet a Korean flag when in response to the news. So if he's up for representing Korea and he can spear some of those guys to go and represent their countries of heritage, that would be amazing. Just as I said, just get as much talent representing as much countries as we can, just to make it a better outcome. Because otherwise, as I said, then the USA are going to just absolutely run away with it. But that's obviously great news. I think no one is going to be against that, and everyone is going to be looking forward to that. Of course, yes, if your star player is on that squad and they get injured, that's going to be a massive punch in the stomach and something that's going to be very, very annoying. But in the end of the day, being able to see NFL players playing flag football in the Olympics is going to be pretty awesome to see. In terms of a rule that didn't get approved, another one. The Lions playoff reseeding proposal, well, I say didn't get approved. They actually ended up withdrawing it before the league meeting actually began. Scrapped it last minute. Obviously, didn't feel like they had the support for it, so didn't want to, back it in the actual meeting. This would, of course, would have meant that even wildcard teams, if they had a better record than the division winners, then they would have been seeded higher in the playoff seedings, which face value, I agree with. You should be seeded based on your record, but then also, maybe this is biased because I'm, I support a team in the AFC North, but I just feel like you might lose some of that divisional edge, shall we say, in terms of, you play 6 division games a year. If you win all those games, you win your division essentially. Maybe not because you could go, lose the other 11 games, but more often than not, you'd win your division. It gives you that incentive in those division games. It makes those division games even better. And I just feel like you might lose that by taking away some of those incentives you get from going and winning your division. And I'm saying this as a Browns fan who, we haven't won the division since before the Houston Oilers, who are no longer a team. So I just feel like, I'd probably be the first person to say that. When you think about when the Browns won, the last 2 times the Browns have made the playoffs, they won 11 games, they didn't win the division. So they had to be a wild card team and go on the road. So, if this rule went through, that would have meant that in those scenarios, they wouldn't have been, they might have been in a situation where they were hosting a playoff game. So I would have loads of reasons to, want this to be approved. But as I said, I just feel like it could take away some of that kind of magic, shall we say, that you get in division games. Yes, obviously AFC North games, unbiased, are the best of those division games we have to offer in the NFL. But in any division, especially the other, you look at a division like the AFC South, especially as a Browns fan. To me, that's a division that those divisional games don't really, do much for you in terms of the rivalry and stuff like that. It just doesn't. It feels like quite a saturated division and kind of boring. So to just have the incentive of end the season trying to win those divisions amongst those teams, trying to win their division. I just feel like if you lost that, then those divisions would just be completely pointless and boring anyway, especially like the AFC South. But obviously, as I said, they didn't end up even going through with it in the end. So that we're going to stick to the original playoff seedings for at least one more year. Win your division, and you are one of the 4 teams, non-wildcard teams. Another rule that was passed, another good rule that was passed. Both teams will now possess the ball in overtime in regular season games. This was just why they only did it for the playoff games was stupid and was just made it even more obvious that they were only doing it in response to that Bills-Chiefs game and to the fan kind of, annoyance about that and the pressure from the fans. So they just did it for the playoffs, which just made absolutely, if you're going to do that, do it for the whole season. Don't know why we had to get to a point where we had to have this interval period where it was just the playoffs, but at least now they've finally amended that, and it doesn't matter whether it's the playoffs or not. Both teams will possess the ball in overtime, so I'm sure Bills fans are happy about that, even though even more so than they were about the initial one as well. The NFL has expanded the use of replay assists. Yes, I'm all for replay. It's 2025. As well as this, they've the Hawkeye cameras can measure first downs. We've gotten rid of chain gang. Yes, the chain gang looks cool, but how are we still doing this in 2025? With all the technology that we have so much better ways of doing it. I've seen the Browns get screwed over so many times by those chains. Let's get rid of them. Let's get actual technology that every other sport is using, but for some reason other than the NFL. Let's get all the amount of replay assists. Let's use Hawkeye not just for first downs. Let's use it for the whole game. Let's have a Hawkeye that, any penalty they can, instead of all the bullshit that we get with penalties and stuff like that, you use that Hawkeye similar to what obviously rugby have, and, not VAR in football, but a version of that. Then you basically eliminate the bullshit because, you just have that at all times. You can go, right, okay, did this happen? You can go and check it, yes or no, right, okay, yes, cool, done, no, not, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know how in 2025 we're still at this point where we haven't got there yet. So any improvement to the replay assists and the Hawkeye and the cameras and all of that stuff, I'm all for. So obviously happy with that. I mean, it should just be for everything. I don't know why it's still only being able to be used on certain plays, etc. It should be used for the entire game, but at least we're making some improvements to it. Touchbacks will move to the 35-yard line. Of course, changed the kickoff rules last year. They're trying to make teams return the ball more. So now if you do kick it, into the other team's end zone, they can bring it out to the 35-yard line instead of the 30. So encouraging those kickers to keep it within that boundary and, of course, force the other team to return the kick. So just another one of the rules that the NFL is, putting through to try and, as I said, get more returns and more explosive plays. And under the radar one and the final one, something that I only heard about doodling the rule changes. The Steelers submitted this one, so kind of hate even saying anything nice about this, but I think it is a good rule change, which is changes to the free agent talking periods. Of course, there's been so many restrictions during the off season on when you can talk to players directly, etc. And this basically has just widened that negotiation period, and you can now talk to players at an earlier date than before, I'm pretty sure. So, that's a common sense thing for me, why you can't taught to play. I mean, there's some cases where you can have him in the building, but you can't taught anything football. It's just stupid, and teams obviously find ways around it. So similar with some of the other ones, any improvement to that whole process is a good thing. So yes, it might have come from the Steelers, but you know, as I said, that is a good thing. But that's all the rule changes from the league meeting. As I said, obviously the biggest one, of course, was the Tush push, and happy that the Browns were one of the teams that you know, had a pair of balls and decided to you know, not ban a play just because they weren't very good at it and weren't able to stop it. So well done, Cleveland. And as I said at the intro, Philadelphia Eagles, you are welcome. But that will do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching. Have an amazing rest of the week. One more day until the weekend. Enjoy the weekend, but most importantly, go Browns.